Hello, I am Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to Impossible Mission for some video game chit-chat. Today, you'd think with this being like the new generation of consoles, we'll talk about something related to that. Nah, mate. we're not the sort of channel that really engages in sort of the current news. So instead of that...
We do, but...
Not in the way that other channels do.
Yeah, we're not obsessed with it. We think there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, and it also means that your video basically is instantly dated the second you put it out. So, this is more timeless. This is timeless content from the Geek Show. So this episode, we're talking about the most open and vague thing imaginable. Genres.
Yeah.
Don't make me explain that, but I think everybody knows what genres are, don't they?
Well, yeah, kind of, but it's interesting you brought that up because I've noticed that gamers tend to be very, very narrow when it comes to genres. They tend to be very hidebound. They stick something into a compartment and it can only be in that compartment. It can't do anything else, be anything else. And a case in point for that is CD Projekt Red, the developer.
Before that, let's slap a title on this bad boy.
Yeah.
This is Do Genres Matter?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cyberpunk, you were saying.
CD Projekt Red, right? When they announced Cyberpunk, when people first got wind that Cyberpunk was going to be a first-person perspective game, people started kicking off.
I was a little bit disappointed because I thought they did such a good job with the third-person perspective in Witcher. I thought they'd build on what they'd already built, but I think, fair play to them for widening the horizons, I thought.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Making a video game is an art, okay? And you don't expect an artist to just paint with one brush or stick to one form. And that's the thing that I never really understood about that whole furore about Cyberpunk being a first-person perspective game. Because, it's up to CD Projekt Red. It's got nothing to do with everyone else. If you don't want to play the game, don't play the game. There's nothing to get upset about.
There's the question. It's fundamentally, it is exactly the same game as The Witcher is.
The reason why CD Projekt Red have gone with the first-person perspective is because it allows them to do certain things they just can't do in third person. Which
and
is
also
fair
it
play.
allows a greater degree of immersion. You can sort of drink the world in when it's in first person, whereas in third, you're kind of at arm's length from it.
Exactly. And it's not like you'll never see your character, because if you walk past a mirror or anything like that, you're going to see your character.
Yeah, terrible narcissists.
Yeah, so if you are that level of narcissistic, then, just play the game standing in front of a mirror.
You got to stop and look at yourself at every mirror you pass. What sort of gamer is that? You're not a real gamer.
I mean, could that be a genre of gaming? Narcissism?
It probably is, yeah. But the reason why I level that sort of claim of do genres matter is look at movies.
Yeah.
Movies do play around with it. You can have, cult movies play around with it, especially cult movies. A theory that I like is from Alex Cox, who said cult movies tend to be a marriage of two things.
Yeah.
Like a sci-fi film noir, for example, like Blade Runner. That's what that is. Whereas typically in movies, it's the one thing.
Dark City's a sci-fi film noir as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them, actually. But in video games, for a long, long time, it was one thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
You were a sports game, or you were a racing game, or you were a RPG, or so on and so forth. You're a platformer, whatever. But that's not really true anymore, is it?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, I'm playing a Metroidvania action platformer, whatever you want to call it, called Sundered, right? But to my mind, that's basically an action-adventure game, not just an action platformer.
And a platformer. It's a platformer, an action-adventure game, and an RPG.
Yeah, it's all three of those genres in one game. But if I was someone else, if I was just your normal gamer, I might, stressing the word might, just compartmentalize it as a Metroidvania and leave it at that.
A Metroidvania, it's, to me, I don't know if this is really... No, actually, yeah, it has. But there's a thing in music journalism where somebody wants to be the guy who gave that genre the name.
Yeah.
Because there you go, your name is cemented in legend now, isn't it? The guy who dubbed drum and
The guy who said,
Dubbing-
who dubstep.
Yeah, IDM or grindcore or whatever, the one who gave it that name. He's like, that's the grindcore guy, that. You don't mess around with him. Which you don't anyway, because grindcore is basically trolling a bin. Yeah. being kicked down a hill. So I'm offending metal fans, of which I count myself as one there. But anyway, video games haven't really had that, but Metroidvania is one of those terms that a journalist made their name on. The same with Souls-like as well.
Yeah.
That's a term which roguelike too, you know.
Well, roguelike, Souls-like, a Metroidvania. The thing that annoys me is that action platformers existed before Metroid and Castlevania. And Metroid and Castlevania, okay, they were popular.
Very popular.
They were popular and remain popular, but they weren't the only ones. And I don't mind that it's a catch-all term to describe a particular type of action platformer, right? But it's one of those things where a lot of people class all action platformers as Metroidvanias. I'm like, okay.
No, that's not true.
There are lots of people who do that. And this is why I say gamers, by their nature, they like to compartmentalize things in these very narrow bands and leave it at that.
Just look at the console war as well. That's it. I mean, that's not what we're talking about today, but that is an extension of that idea that people have their boxes and they like to stay in their boxes. So you're either an Xbox guy or a PlayStation guy, a PC guy or a Nintendo, you know.
Well, we've seen it with the new console releases. We've seen it with that. How much? How many Xbox people have been dissing the PlayStation 5, and how many PlayStation people have been dissing the Xbox Series X?
Not worth it. Wasted energy.
Exactly.
But just to look at it a bit broader, it's not just like action platformers or whatever you want to call it. Look at sports games and racing games.
Yeah.
Racing games and sports games have had this new thing where they have been putting stories in.
Yeah.
Racing games especially, they've had like career mode. The career mode isn't like, I've got to get this championship and I've got to get the next championship. No, you'll have like an avatar in that world, and that avatar character will have like, kind of what it was. I think it was one of the upcoming No, that's it. It's Dirt. The upcoming Dirt.
Yeah.
The upcoming Dirt has a story which has Nolan North and Trey Barker in it. Dirt, a rally game.
Yeah.
With cars going around places there shouldn't be. With a guy sat next to him barking in their ear.
Not just
has a story mode with them two in.
Yeah. Not just that. Grid. The Codemasters Racing Series Grid. That has this career mode where the whole idea is you gain popularity on the internet. So the more races you do, the more successful you are, the more traction you gain on the games version of YouTube and stuff like that. And you gain more followers, and the more followers you gain, more money you get from sponsorships, everything like that, the more successful you get because you can improve your car, win more races, and it all feeds into it. Do you see what I mean?
That's a glorified leveling up system like an RPG has.
It is, but I mean, they've worked it into like this career mode.
They just changed the terminology. It's not like get HP points and get skill points and get your level up.
Yeah.
It's using terms that are like part of that world.
Yeah, exactly.
And FIFA is very well known for, what was it called? The story mode. It's like a trilogy of story modes. FIFA 18, 19 and 20 had the story mode.
Yeah, which I actually didn't mind.
A long-running story mode as well. Like
I actually
passed through from game to game.
I actually didn't mind that FIFA had a story mode. I thought, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the American football, baseball, basketball, them games also have a long-standing history of it. I think basketball especially.
What, MLB The Show, was it?
I think that has it. But the point is, these games aren't just sticking in their lane, are they?
No, they're not. And I like it when developers look at a game and start breaking down the genre boundaries and start thinking about a game from a different perspective. So, okay, maybe it started off as a platform game, but then they start thinking, well, hang on, does it have to be a 2D platformer? Can we not change the perspective? Can we not add this? Can we not do that? And then start really thinking outside the box and come up with something completely unique. That's how the creative process works.
It kind of speaks of like creative liberation, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's I think creative liberation is probably one of the greatest things about video games. The fact that you can literally apply your brain, your imagination, use your imagination like it's supposed to be used, and say, I want to do that. I have this dream of making a game that does this and this and this and this and this. And you know what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to code it all. I'm going to make it.
Here's an example. There's a game that I want to play that hasn't been released on PlayStation 4 yet, but I haven't had the chance. I think it's on Switch and other things, PC. It's called Lair of the Clockwork God.
Yeah.
It's about two buddies who go off and try to solve some stuff. One level is point and click. The next level is difficult action platformer, like Celeste or Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
And those two things sit in the same game as each other. And they work because the story gives them that opportunity to work.
Yeah.
Could you imagine in the HellSign days of both the platformer, the 2D platformer, and the point and click, where somebody came along and says, right, we've got this game where it's not one, it's both. You're never being allowed to do that. At all.
No, you wouldn't have been allowed to do that. That's the thing. Technological limitations aside, because technology would have limited you doing stuff.
Oh, yeah,
like
but say what you will. I honestly believe that video gaming establishment is probably one of the most conservative establishments in media.
It is. It doesn't just apply to games by themselves, though. This whole thing about
just
genre.
to clarify,
Yeah.
I'm not bagging on conservatives, although I am. I'm using conservative in the way that what that word means. So just to clarify, I'm not being political.
Yeah.
But I can be if you want to.
But I mean, it doesn't just apply to games themselves. It applies to characters from games as well, right? Let me put it this way: Super Mario RPG. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's Paper Mario as well.
Well, Paper Mario is still technically a platform game. Super Mario RPG.
The point is, Mario. The point you're getting at there is Mario used to be the jumpy, bang his head on things and spit fire out when he touched a follower. He is a platform guy.
Yeah, but Mario is, Super Mario RPG is a prime example of a character breaking out of a particular genre and existing in other genres. The RPG in Mario and Sonic Go to the Olympics is basically a sports game. Mario Charge Football is a sports game. Mario Tennis is a sports game. There's a whole range of Mario sports games. Mario Golf is another sports game.
Super Smash Brothers is a great example of that. I mean, I hate the game. I'm not going to get into that because
it's a pure dyed-in-the-wool fighting game.
But it's got people from all sorts of genres that are jumping in there.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. I think that's one of the things that Nintendo have done particularly well is think outside the box when it comes to games development as well.
I think they've had to, really, because they've got such a self-enforced small catalogue of games that they have to get as much as they possibly can from the properties that they have.
Yeah. Do you know what I would have loved to have seen? When they were talking about Starlink and the new Star Fox game and everything like that, do you know what they should have done? They should have taken a leaf out of No Man's Sky's handbook and said, okay, we're going to make Star Fox like this.
Yeah, Star Fox, what was it on the Wii U? That disastrous one?
I think so, yeah. Was it the Wii U or the Wii?
Yeah.
Because Star Fox on the GameCube was still pretty decent, but...
Yeah, the one, I think it was on the Wii U. That was them trying to make a game in 2015, whatever, using a model from, 1997.
Yeah, I know. One of the things Nintendo...
So I think that the message there is games have got to innovate to stay relevant.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't like what Nintendo do... that I don't like that Nintendo do, because that was poor grammar from me. I expect better, Rob.
I don't think you're going to be marked down by that.
Someone will. Someone out there will mark me down for it. I guarantee it. But anyway, one of the things that I don't like that they do is the constant remakes of old games. They're not alone in that, but I mean, if I already own copies of all the games that are in a particular remake collection, why the hell should I buy the remake collection?
Okay, let's get back on topic.
Back on topic, yeah. Back on topic, leaving that to one side. That's a minor gripe.
I mean, you have a big issue with Fallout.
I have a big issue with Fallout because because Bethesda played it far too safe as far as I'm concerned.
But the thing is, here's the point on it. It'd be very hard. I mean, safety to one side. Bethesda believed they had to change what it was because whenever it was, 2010, something like that, you couldn't make a game like those old Fallout ones aesthetically. They had to reinvent it, and in them reinventing what Fallout was, they popularised something which has kind of become all-encompassing in the first-person shooter space. On one side of the first-person shooter space, you got the things that the same as have always been.
Yeah.
Like your Call of Duties, which is shoot that man, hide behind that. You're being shot in the face, but you'll get better because you're hiding behind that wall. And
yeah.
That wall makes you better. There's the Battlefronts and the Battlefields, the one which you control vehicles.
Which you can now do in Call of Duty as well.
Yeah, I have not played Call of Duty for a while. And then there's the Fallout ones, which are basically the RPGs, but you shoot guns and it's first person.
Yeah, which Borderlands also falls into the category of that.
Yeah.
Actually, Borderlands is looter shooter, isn't it?
Yeah, which is Diablo, but the same.
Yeah. But then you've got the third-person versions where you have the cover shooters, Gears of War, stuff like that. So run, hide behind, shoot, hide behind, shoot, hide, shoot, hide, shoot.
You're being shot in the face, but, you'll get better because you're hiding behind a wall.
Do you know what I realised after a long period of time and winding my brain down several notches? I finally realised that Gears of War is basically the third person, is glorified, much gorier version of, you remember Time Crisis? Where you took your foot off the pedal and you ducked down behind the thing?
Well, you shot off the screen.
Yeah, you shot off the screen to reload. But you had the pedal and you had to press down on the pedal on the floor to stand up and shoot. That. And Gears of War is basically that.
Yeah, so my point with the Fallout thing was, though, is RPGs became irrelevant in the West for a very long time. They became like the pursuit of the super nerdy. They were as far out of the mainstream space as humanly possible.
Well, it wasn't just that. I think one of the things...
And Fallout mainstreamised the RPG, and Fallout I'm holding Fallout responsible for so many games having RPG mechanics.
Yeah, Fallout annoyed me for that. Well, for that, but I mean, the other thing that Fallout annoyed me for was...
I will agree on the other thing, that it doesn't take any risks with its choices.
Yeah, because a lot of the freedom has been taken away. Fallout stopped being a game where the story was a lot of the story was defined by you, the player, and became a game where you were basically led around by the nose in this pre-made story that you really had not much agency in. And that's a lot of the RPGs that exist now.
Let's be fair, though. Bethesda are terrible at making games.
Yeah.
Good publisher, terrible at making games.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I quite liked the old BioWare stuff, like Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect and stuff like that. Because there was a degree of agency about it because of the choices that you could make in the story, But
yeah, I'm trying to think of how to get this back on topic now. We've kind of went off a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's go back on topic.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of how to get there now.
Let's just go there. It's fine. There's no need for any of that.
All right, you bring something else up, seeing as though you completely.
Yeah, I do.
I'm blaming you for something I did, but go on, it's your fault. You get. What do you want to talk about now?
Well, okay. Right, horror games are one of my bugbears when it comes to this whole narrow-minded genre thing. Right, horror games in particular are one of my bugbears.
One box fits all. Yeah.
Right, because every developer who makes horror games always does exactly the same thing. I can only make it as a survival horror or a psychological horror. I can only do these two things because these are the two things. This is the only type of horror game that's allowed in video games. And I'm like, have none of you played Koudelka?
No, because nobody's even heard of it, Rob. Bloody hell.
Have none of you played Koudelka or Shadow Hearts or anything like that? Which, Shadow Hearts is not as much an RPG horror, but Koudelka is most definitely an RPG horror game. It is.
That is a thing, though. There's no RPG horrors at all.
There's one, and it's called Koudelka, and nobody.
I think Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner had like some massive horror overtones.
Yeah,
but it wasn't a horror game.
It wasn't a horror game. It was an action game.
Yeah, but it was just set in a world, a very dangerous world of monsters.
Yeah. I mean, technically, Persona...
Like proper monsters, not like silly monsters, proper monsters.
Yeah, technically, Persona has some horror elements, but again...
It's softened by it being basically Dayglow.
Yeah, but Koudelka, set in a creepy abbey, you're exploring around as the character of Koudelka, the RPG thing happens and you're fighting ghosts and monsters and stuff like that, and it's very, very horror in a lot of the...
Yeah, I mean, talking about horror in a sort of the wider sense, it is the hardest genre to meld with other things.
Yeah.
I think horror point and clicks have been about the biggest point and click adventure, have been the biggest sort of risk that the genres took since the idea that you could play a character who was totally helpless.
Yeah.
And when you have a character who's totally helpless, there's really only one version of that game you can play.
Yeah, hide and seek.
Big monster comes, I hide.
Yeah,
that's it. It's
basically the hide and seek game. That's all you can do.
Because that's what Alien Isolation is, that's what the Clock Tower is, that's what all of those games are.
Yeah, Haunting Ground is quite literally just a hide-and-seek simulator. Among
it's the same with survival horror games, really. They are all exactly the same game. It's just some developers take bigger risks than others with them.
Yeah, there was that one where you play as a toddler, Among the Sleep.
Yeah, it wasn't very good, but it was a bold idea.
Yeah, it was a bold idea, and I like the idea of changing the perspective to that of a toddler. Made a lot of sense.
Yes, but as far as the horror genre goes, point and clicks are the furthest I've seen. Yeah. It was that, what was it called? We've got a review on the channel. I'll link it up in the top right now, but it was a Cthulhu Lovecraft-based point and click with RPG stuff. It was interesting. I think it was slept on by a lot of people.
Yeah.
There was The Last Door as well. That's a horror point and click game, but it's amazing, isn't it? It got a genre which has had to fight tooth and nail to even be a thing because studios have rendered it as sort of obsolete that it doesn't make any money. That those games are subject to the least innovation.
Yeah,
the least variation in their formula.
Yeah. The Walking Dead Telltale ones were technically point and click.
They're not horror games.
That's the thing. They've just
got zombies in them. The zombies do not make it instantly horror.
No. What I was about to say was they don't seem horrific in any way.
Yeah. I mean, some people believe that because it's got monsters in it, it instantly makes it horror. I don't subscribe to that belief. I believe this type of story you tell are horror. And that story, Walking Dead is a drama game. It's a drama story. It's not about survival. It's not about any... Well, it is in a sense, but, not in a gameplay sense.
Yeah. When it comes to the RPG side of things, I would love to see more RPG horrors, right? I think...
It's a hard marriage.
Well, not as much as you think. See, this is the thing. It's not a horror game, but I'm using it as an example because it is actually a decent example to use. Or actually, no, I actually do have the perfect game to use as my example. HellSign. HellSign is a horror game, right?
And that was the Hellboy game.
That's the Hellboy game without Hellboy. It's the perfect Hellboy game where you're
another link in the top for that review.
Yeah, it's the perfect Hellboy game because you are a supernatural investigator. You have to go in and figure out what it is that's inside this property, and if you've got extermination missions, you basically have to fight against all these other creatures. And you've got limited weaponry. It's randomly generated houses, which, sometimes can be much bigger on the inside than they look on the outside. But you can put that down to supernatural energies or whatever it is. Anyway, one of the things I think is amazing about HellSign is the fact that the money that you earn from these jobs is part of the leveling system, so you can buy better weapons, better equipment, that sort of thing, make your survivability better. So there is an RPG aspect to the game. So Koudelka isn't the only RPG then. HellSign it has RPG aspects. It's not a pure dyed-in-the-wool RPG, but it is a horror, and it has RPG elements.
So let's loop around to the question at the heart of this episode.
Yeah.
We've talked around it. Do genres matter in video games?
I think you can have a primary genre that you want the game to fall into, the category that you want the game to fall into, but I think that you shouldn't be limited by that genre.
Well, there's many things that are. And I don't think throwing in some light RPG mechanics is really evolving what you can be.
No, I agree with you on that. This is one of the
Not anymore.
Yeah,
not anymore.
This is one of the reasons why I want a proper RPG horror game.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it seems like with video games, genres don't matter because the way analogy I looked at it, it's like a big pot, and you're going to make it. You got dough in there. Your dough is your genre is flavourless. It's flavourless though, but that's your best genre. And the stuff that you throw in there is the stuff that gives it flavour. Until you bake it all together, and then you put it in the oven, and then you realise, I can't bake. This is a mess. What's happened?
See, now you're just reminding me of the Italian games. You said throw it all in the big pot and give it a stir. Like, that's
So you've got a
alchemy.
brick
That's
in there.
alchemy.
You've got a brick in there, and
An apple
you've
and
got
some flour.
toothpaste,
Yeah.
and then when you're finished, out comes a go-kart.
Yeah, that's literally how it goes. I mean, some of the recipes that they come up with in the Italian games make no sense whatsoever. Some of them you can get, but others, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good example of a game which is just throwing together all sorts of different genres that don't work together.
But somehow works.
Yeah. So honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think genres do matter. They do in certain spaces.
Yeah.
In like the ultra mainstream sort of the people who buy 3 games a year and want 2 of them are FIFA and Call of Duty, that space matters.
Yeah.
Being very plain and the same old. No, that's a harsh way of looking at it, but in that space, those sort of strict rules matter.
Well,
outside of that,
yeah,
less and less and less.
But that's why I said, have a foundation genre. I mean, FIFA, for example, FIFA 18, when they introduced the story mode, yeah?
I think it was 18, but yeah.
18, 19, whichever one it was.
17, 18, but yeah.
The one where they introduced the story mode, everyone was kind of, oh, it's got story mode, blah, 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 blah. But the base game was still the same FIFA game. It's still the same game, still playing football. And that's it. They just added to it. And I think that's what a lot of developers need to start taking into serious consideration, what they're adding to it and how they're adding to it.
Yeah, to jump over to movies, there's only so many stories you can tell, so you've got to put in some things of your own to make it unique and make it yours.
Yeah.
Video games are at that point now.
Yeah.
Where you can't just have, here is a RPG with a fine story, or here is a sports game with good mode, or whatever. You've got to innovate to make people feel like it's worth spending their money on.
Yeah. And just, final point from me on this, I think that if you think something isn't going to work, then that's basically incorrect, right? You have no idea of what's going to work and what isn't going to work. Take Okami.
But that's executives. That's executives talking now, isn't it?
Yeah.
They think what's going to work, what's going to work, and what isn't.
Yeah, but
without any sort of knowledge.
Take Okami, for example. Okami, by rights, should not work as a game.
Yeah, it's horrifically pretentious, but it's not.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, if you look at Okami on paper, right, and you write down all the bits of Okami, you write down what genres it is, how it controls, stuff like that.
So if you write on paper, Okami is a Legend of Zelda ripoff in which you play a fox which doesn't have any weapons, and it fights using calligraphy and ink.
Is it a fox or a wolf? Can't remember.
Amaterasu nine-tailed fox, yeah.
Yeah, nine-tailed fox, yeah.
Break it down on paper, don't make any sense. Put them all together, classic.
And you have magic, right? And that's the point.
None of the characters talk. They make squabble Charlie Brown adult noises.
Yeah. It shouldn't work, but it does. There's no logic behind it working, but it's beloved. Okami is a beloved game.
Yeah, which is a action adventure platformer with RPG elements, which brings us full circle.
Yeah.
Okami is a Metroidvania game.
A bizarre Metroidvania game where you fight using art.
Yeah, it just sounds really pretentious saying out loud, doesn't it?
But that's my point. It shouldn't work, but it does. So
yeah, and that's a perfect point to end on, I think, that.
If you liked the video, then give us a thumb, a sub, or a bell. And if you want to see more videos like this, then please support us on Patreon. The details are in the description.
But that's it from Impossible Mission this week. Join us every Thursday for more video game chit-chat. Until next time, thanks for watching.